Perfect.
Now you're recording. And then if you want to pull the presentation back, Pete, you can pull it back and show it.
Everybody can hear me, correct?
No, it's not great now.
Now it's muffled.
Okay. Better now?
Yeah.
You
All
look
right.
like you're going to take off the space.
Well, try to be entertaining at the same time here, you know?
Of course. Well, the Italian way.
Exactly. So, all right, I think we can get going now. There's enough people jumped in here. So appreciate you guys joining. I'm happy to present this opportunity, explain a little bit to you guys about MLI Select, what it's all about, and kind of get into details of what's available and why I think this is a prime opportunity for us to jump in and
Sorry,
take a look.
Pete, I'm so sorry. I have people texting me. People are waiting to be let in. So I guess you have to be mindful of that.
Okay.
Yeah. Amazing. Thank you so much.
Okay. So I guess I'll try to keep an eye on both. But, okay. So, Tess, sorry guys, one last question.
Yeah,
I have
right
to
here.
pull this. I have to pull this down to get to this,
Yeah, correct. So they just pull
and
that
then I
up.
have to pull, and then I have to pull this up for you guys to see it. Correct?
Yeah.
All right. A little bit annoying, but navigate it. We're not at the office back home, and we don't have Tessa with us here in Edmonton, but we'll make do. So let me just admit everybody's in here. All right. Okay. So guys, I'm gonna mostly be on the presentation, so I won't see you guys. I'll talk for a little bit. You guys can, and we'll have a lot of time for questions and answers. If I, get a little bit, if it doesn't make sense or like there's too much information or anything you guys want to pause and ask quick, happy to do so. But hopefully it should be pretty self-explanatory. The other thing is just, I know me. I won't go exactly by the slide. I'm going to kind of talk on cuff quite a bit. But the slides are there for you to kind of, understand. And you can I'll send it to you guys after so you guys can read more information, have more information, understand more, and go over it again in case you missed something. Because it is quite a bit. And I understand, like anything, it's a new, it's a new product, a new situation. So not everybody's comfortable with it. And so, we'll do the best we can here. 1 second. Okay. Tess?
Yeah, just pull it right up.
Okay, but if I pull this one, okay, so this is, now everybody can see this.
Yeah, and then you'll see it in the bottom, that little blue thing on the far right corner. That's it too. So just
This is
keep it.
this?
Yeah, so if you want to go back to everybody, you just pull
Okay.
that right back up. So you just
Perfect.
go on the normal screen. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you. Okay, guys. So 5% to freedom, how to build a real estate empire with what I invented, the BRRR method, plus MLI Select. So typically speaking, a lot of you guys understand the BRRR method, which is buy, renovate, refinance, rinse, repeat. We've changed it to buy, build, refinance, rinse, repeat. And so MLI Select, so I guess I'll continue here for a second. Imagine turning just 5% down into a high cash flow, refinance ready, multifamily asset in Edmonton's best location without development or tenant management headaches. And that's exactly what this opportunity delivers. Greatness lives just beyond the edge of comfort. Every risk you take is a bridge from who you are to who you were meant to become. A little bit about me. I run a real estate team, been a successful real estate for quite a long time. I'm also a licensed builder who builds custom homes, and I've dabbled into the world of commercial and development quite a bit over the last 5-6 years, looking at a lot of different sites and converting, zoning changes and whatnot. And so, I found myself into this new space of MLI Select, and it really is the most advantageous thing I've seen in 15 years in the business. And that's because it allows people who aren't, worth $50 million to be able to make moves, which are in most cases not doable. So what is MLI Select? MLI Select is a program by the Canadian Mortgage and Housing Corporation that offers significant benefits for multi-unit residential property investors in order to address the housing shortage in Canada. They do this with an incentive-based point system. So there's an incentive-based point system. Wait, I think I have to admit somebody else. Sorry, guys. Yeah. So there's an incentive-based point system, and investors can earn points by committing to affordability, energy efficiency, and accessibility. Higher point leads to better incentives such as reduced premiums and extended amortization. There's enhanced flexibility, financing flexibility. The program provides higher loan-to-value ratios, longer amortization periods, and lower debt coverage ratios, facilitating more accessible financing options. And so, to kind of sum it up, basically there was a shortage in housing, and there still is in Canada, and we know that through the last 4 or 5 years. We've seen it. Prices absolutely skyrocketed. We have a big demand for especially affordable housing, rental houses, rental product, and so the government said we need to fix this. And so they invented the MLI Select program to help incentivize us to do so. And so, most times to own an apartment building, you're talking, well, even if we just look at even a very, very simple, sorry, just adding somebody else. But if we look at a very simple, buying a duplex in most of you guys are in Ontario, Hamilton, Toronto, GTA, you're looking at 800,000 at least, close to $1 million. So you're gonna have to put 20-25% down, and you're going to be getting a single family or a duplex. And in most cases, you're going to be pretty much cash flow neutral, cash flow negative, especially on a single family. Even if you bought a condo, you're 150 to 200K, and it's still very hard to make it work from a numbers perspective. But the whole intent of why most people, like I bought properties when I was 15 years ago when I got into business, and the whole reason why you do that is because you want to acquire wealth, and we know that an asset grows with inflation, and so eventually you have tenants paying down your asset while it's growing, and so you're gaining equity, gaining appreciation at the same time, and so you're not so concerned with cash flow because in most cases you're worried about the end goal, which is 5 years, 10 years, 20 years from now. And historically speaking, real estate grows at a 5% or sorry, 3-4% clip. So every 15-ish years, it almost doubles. And so, I think that is where most of us have got into the market. It's not for the cash flow specifically. It's more so for the long-term play. The beauty with MLI Select is, why it's so advantageous is now you can go from owning, instead of a duplex, you can own a 23 or 35 unit building. And if we use a 23, for example, for $280,000, so 5% down. So now you go from owning a $800,000 to $1 million investment up to a $5.6, $5.7 million investment. And obviously when that grows with appreciation, that's massive. But on top of that, these are cash flow positive because the government is incentivizing by giving you 50-year amortization. But on top of it just being 50-year amortization, which is amazing because the longer the amortization means the lower the amount of payments per month, but the added bonus is they're giving you prime rates, and even lower than prime rates. And typically speaking, commercial, you're in the 6-7% all day long. We're seeing 3.85 right now on these performas, and very likely we're going to get it even less by the time construction comes around, because it goes with the bond yields, and we're seeing that it's probably going to be dropping. So, all of a sudden, if it dropped 0.5%, these performers are going to perform even better for you. So again, MLI Select, what are the incentives? 50-year amortization, prime rates, and 5% down. That makes it extremely advantageous for us. And why did the government do it? Because we have a housing shortage, and they tried to address it, and they're trying to throw money at it to fix it, and it's working. And so that's the long and short about MLI Select. Obviously, we can go into more detail about the point system and how exactly that works. There's affordable rents that are required, and what that means is 25% of the units have to be in an affordable rent situation. And so what that, CMHC has a criteria for this. And so for Edmonton, for example, it's 1656. So, if you have 25% of the units that are under the 1656 mark, you all of a sudden get the that achieves the 50-year amortization with the 5% down. And so it's all a point system. You don't need to stress too much about the point system, because you're not building it. You're not doing it yourself. You just need to know that the builder, the developer, is aware and is making sure that it is. And when you look at who does these performas, because that's one of the questions a lot of people ask, why, or who wrote these numbers? Well, at the end of the day, the liability is strongly on, you only have 5% into the project, so it's strongly on the lender, as well as CMHC that's backing these loans. And so at the end of the day, they want to make sure that their money is going out in a good spot. They don't want to lend out $5.6 million in a place where the numbers don't make sense and it's not going to jive. So all of the numbers in the performa are actually very conservative, and we're going to go over that further when we go over the performa part. But just so you know, everything is done by a third party. Everything is insured by CMHC. It's all backed by the government. And so this makes it, one of the lowest risk situations you can come across, because you have that back. You go buy a pre-con condo from a builder, and that builder could go bankrupt, and you're shit out of luck. Part of my language, but in these situations, it's CMHC back, and so at the end of the day, they're going to make sure this product gets built one way or another. The builder dies, the builder goes bankrupt, whatever the case is. They back this parcel. As soon as you get that certificate of insurance, they're going to make sure that this thing gets built for you. So it really kind of alleviates a lot of your concerns. It should, at least. And again, 15 years in the business, I haven't seen something that's this advantageous, and it keeps getting better and better the more I dig into it for you guys. So why Edmonton? Why not do this in? Why not do this in your own backyard? Well, it's very hard for it to work in your own backyard for a lot of reasons. For one, we have developmental charges, and I build houses. They're a lot. Just on a single family home, I'm paying $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 on DT charges. In Calgary, there's none. In Alberta, there's none. They have no DC charges. They have no land transfer tax. And they have a 5% tax. So there's a lot of benefits to Edmonton that makes it very business, friendly, and incentivizes us to do business here. And one of the other big ones is in Ontario. I just dealt with 6 months of kicking a tenant out that refused to pay me. Going through the tribunal process, getting them evicted, getting it cleaned up. Over here, it's it's landlord friendly. You don't pay within 14 days. You're getting a judgment, and with another week or two, they're gone. So basically, it's within a month you're getting free and vacant possession back of your unit. So that's a big benefit because like for me, $2,500 a month. This tenant wasn't paying me 6 months. That's $15,000. It adds up. So very very business friendly climate. Diversified economy and energy, tech, healthcare. The landlord friendly province, low tax environment. They only have a 5% tax here versus we got 13%. And Edmonton has a 3.1% vacancy, but in the Strathcona area, we're seeing as low as 1.4%. We're right beside the University of Alberta here. It's one of the top 5 Canadian universities. There's 40,000 students, fueling the steady demand. We're right beside the hospital. We're right beside Whyte Ave. That's where I'm actually at right this second. And it's very, very lively. A lot of people, you want to go out for nice dinner. There's a lot of options. You have the West Edmonton Mall. That's a big attraction. And because of all these reasons, because of the business friendly environment, you're getting a lot more business moving here, a lot more people moving here, immigrants, migrants. It's just one of the fastest growing cities in North America. So for lots of reasons, this is the spot. Again, for me, some of the biggest ones is just the cost of doing business is a lot lower, and it actually makes sense for us here. Whereas we've run the numbers in Ontario, and it's literally next to impossible to make this happen. Unless we're getting depressed land, it's literally next to impossible to get it. So to make the numbers work, right? So why 5% down works for investors? You're leveraging with CMHC to finance these properties. The financing program is designed to reward long-term sustainable rental housing with extended amortization periods of up to 50 years. Investors can dramatically reduce monthly payments and maximize cash flow. That's what we talked about already. Lower entry point, 5% down. You can be rest assured this project is already approved at 5% down. We will get this done at 5% down. Lee deals directly with a CMHC rep, ICI Capital, who is one of the number 1 leading lenders that is approved by CMHC, and he deals with the best people. But ICI Capital is for sure one of the best. They approve up to 60% of CMHC product, and so they know what's needed to get these things approved. And they're running these performers using third parties to make sure that everything's verified, everything's buttoned up, and so that we're not going to have any issues down the road. So it really should, give us all peace of mind that this is definitely where we want to be a part of. On top of that, we have built-in property management. So when we look later on at the performa, you'll see we have a 6.8% built in for the property management column, and really over here you can see anywhere of 5 to 5.5%. So we're very conservative at that point, but and that's a good thing for you. We want to promise the worst and kind of hope for the best here. We want to under promise, over deliver. And so what we're seeing, especially in this Strathcona area, is they're getting these places 90% occupied by closing. There's a very, very high demand, like I said, because you're beside the university, you're beside the hospital. There's just a ton of demand for this area. It's an affluent area. You're beside, festivals, markets, a lot of nightlife. And then there's obviously all the spill off of like TAs, profs, residents, nurses, and then a lot of thing that drives this area is the oil fields. And so people will go and work for 2, 3, 4 weeks straight in the oil fields, but they want to come back because there's nothing up there in Fort Mac and whatnot. And so they want to come back to something that has some, life. And so they'll rent the place for $1,600 a month here, and it can stay vacant, and they'll come back here for a week at a time and enjoy themselves. And so, we're really targeting that a lot of people ask why are, for example, a 23 unit, why is it all one bedrooms? Well, we're trying to accommodate the biggest demand, right? And the biggest demand here is for one bedrooms. And so why would we try to, you know, change the mold? If everybody wants one bedroom, it's the highest demanded property that people are looking for, then why try to attract 2 and 3 beds? It's just not, doesn't make sense. And it takes up space, and the cost difference of going bigger doesn't help us. You know, we're the cost to construct those bigger units and the actual influx of rent that comes from it doesn't really make it worthwhile to make that change. So it's hands-free cash flow money that you guys are making on these projects. The biggest thing about these, like I said before, you know, it's the appreciation that you're gaining over time. You know, you change, for example, one of your duplexes or, you know, 2 of your rentals there to a 23 unit building here. You go from an $800 to $1 million investment to a $5-6 million investment. When you're adding, you know, 4% a year, and that's very low because we're seeing a huge influx in Edmonton. But when you add, even historically speaking, 4% a year, you know, over a 10-year period, 40% difference. You're making, you know, $2.5-3 million on a $5.6 million building. And so, you know, it really, that's what your goal is. And at that point, you can refinance, you can take money out from it, you can start to buy another. And really, the beauty of these is because, you know, you're buying it before it's built. The projection is it'll be 10%. And this comes straight from the third party appraisals. You know, the projection is it's actually going to grow 10% by the time it's complete. So that's just, you know, based on inflation, based on the fact that there's hesitation for anybody to buy something that's not actually built and not actually 100% rented out. But, you know, in the very, you know, truth is these third party companies that are running these appraisals to, you know, satisfy ICI Capital and CMHC are saying there's a 10% increase. And so if you look at that, you're going to be making $500,000 in literally a year. And so what a lot of people have done, and you can do, is instantly go to CMHC, refinance your capital back out, and do another one. And that's where I was speaking before about the BRRR method, which is buy, build, refinance, rinse, repeat. And so, you know, there's a gentleman that we know here that we've dealt with. He started this 6 years ago, and he's been, you know, he bought a 180 unit building and then another building and another building and refinance. And, you know, he's up to 1,000 doors and bringing in, you know, $1.5+ million in commission or in cash flow a year. And he has none of his own money actually in the properties. And so that's, you know, that's huge. That's very powerful. This is how you create generational wealth, right? This is how not only do you create generational wealth, but you change lives, you know, your own life. In 10 years, you can make yourself $4 million potentially passive, plus the cash flow. It's massive. So, you know, stability and predictability with Edmonton's record low vacancy rates. It's an environment where units don't sit empty, rents are climbing, and demand is strong. So we'll go into the pro forma. Any questions actually before we dig deeper into the pro forma? I know it's a lot of information, and I kind of go fast, and I didn't go exactly on the actual slide verbatim, but happy to answer any questions that anybody may have. If you aren't quite understanding what MLI Select is, or if you have any questions about it, happy to answer. Anybody have any questions? Any questions about why Edmonton? Okay, so I'll continue. So this 23 plex we'll go over. And if you look, it's 23 one-bedroom units. Average rent per unit, $1,600 a month, $441,000 annually. There's only 3 parking spots, and everybody, that's one of the questions people raise. But, sorry, I have to admit somebody else. A lot of people ask, why is there only 3 parking spots? Well, when you actually come here, you'll see, we're in an area where there's LRT, there's buses, there's everything is walking distance. You're a kilometer to the university, you're a kilometer to the hospital. It's very walkable. I would gather the walking score here would be somewhere in the 90s. You just don't need it. It's like people downtown Toronto. You don't really need a car there. And so not only is there the 3 parking spots, but there's also tons of street parking places if they need. There's bike units as well. That's what's very big here. A lot of people bike, and CMHC asks us to put these in. But everything is in here on a conservative basis. So you got, and these are all, again, guys, they're numbers, not that we created, but that a third party created to that CMHC as well as ICI Capital has to get done to make sure that it fits their criteria. So for example, we'll start with, 3.1% vacancy. What we have here is actually 1.4 to 2.1. So there's already a 1% difference that's going to benefit you and add more money to your cash flow line. For example, we said earlier, management and salaries, $30,000. That's 6.8% of the total. We're actually running at 5 to 5.5%. Really, there's some people like, I think Barbara's in here, she's potentially going to be managing it herself. And it is doable. So that all of a sudden this line, goes down to this line. You got repairs and maintenance, $19,000. This is a brand new building. I'd be very, very, very hard pressed to see you spend $19,000 on repairs in the first year, in the second year, in the third year. You're going to spend $60,000 on a brand. I highly doubt it. But again, this isn't Bible. This is what CMHC and ICI Capital put towards to show you guys, hey, this is what you should budget for. It doesn't mean you're going to have to spend this, but this is a budget to make you guys know that, look, you're running a business, right? And at the end of the day, you need to have an insurance in case shit happens. And so you have lines in here to protect yourself. Replacement cost, $8,800. So if you add up a bunch of these lines and put them to your cash flow line, which already is $27,000 a year in cash flow, and when you look at that and you only put $290,000 down to bring in $27,000, you're getting 9.4% on your money. But on top of that, which is great, and most people put money in private annuities at 8.2%, and they're happy as hell. But on top of that, you're getting the passive appreciation of the property, right? And you're also getting the equity pay down. And so the combination of the 3 make this, to me, absolutely game changer. So you also see here 3.85% interest. And what we're seeing right now is actually 3.75 and even 3.65. There's a chance that by the time we actually get these complete, it might be in the high 2s, which would dramatically increase your cash flow. And so this whole performance should really make you feel comfortable that we're on the conservative side with numbers to protect you and make sure it's only a bonus after that. And so one other question people have, what if interest rates go up from 3.85 to 4.5? Well, the beauty is once you get your certificate of insurance, you're locked in at whatever that rate is. So if it's 3.75, you're locked in until completion of the project. Once the project is complete, then they will look and see if the rate is higher, you're protected. You're locked in at that 3.75 rate. for whatever you decide, 5-year or 10-year fixed. Obviously, if you go 10-year, it'll be a little bit higher. But if you do 5-year, you'll be at that 375 mark. However, if it goes lower, you can lock it in at the new lower rate. And so that's obviously another incentive for us to say, hey, look, this is a government program to incentivize to do this. And so that's a perk that they offer to say, hey, look, if in that year of project work being completed, the rate goes down, we'll give you the better rate. And so that's huge. You know, most banks, they give you 3 months. They don't give you more than that. So that's massive. And the other cool thing is even the appraisal. When you buy a pre-con, and we've seen this over the last few years, if all of a sudden, you know, 2 years pass and the condo is built and it's worth 50, 60, 100,000 less than you bought it for, well, guess what? You're going to have to come up with that difference. This is insured and backed. And so once you get your certificate of insurance, you do not have to stress about anything else. Again, why I'm so excited about this opportunity. Every single piece of it makes me feel more and more comfortable. You know, at the end of the day, it's our reputation online, and I want to know that my clients aren't going to be in a bad situation, right? I want to make sure my team's clients know they're not going to be in a bad situation. So I come out to Edmonton to make sure that all I's are dotted, all T's are crossed, and that we are, you know, putting a product forward that's vetted fully, location-wise and numbers-wise. So I've met with ICI Capital. You know, I've met with everybody on the team. I've made sure that we are in a great position to, you know, really help you guys change lives. And so when you look down at the first year, you know, the 10% projection increase, that's $578,000 in 1 year. So, you know, if you think about it, what did real estate 13 years ago when I was buying real estate in Hamilton, you know, I was buying houses at $100, $150, $200,000, right? And today, those houses that I bought for $100, $150, $200,000 are worth $600,000, $700,000, $800,000, $900,000 or more. And so, you know, that's a 12-year span. You know, think to yourself, what were buildings worth 15 years ago? What is this going to be worth in 15 years? And, you know, that's the power of these things. It's generational wealth, it's legacy, it's passive appreciation. And even if, you know, there's some people who are like, well, you know, I don't care about that. I want an exit strategy. Well, there's tons of exit strategies for this as well. You know, you got REITs that will buy this up. The reasons why, for example, there's a 10% increase in the first year is, if you think about it, why would you be hesitant to buy this? Well, I'm not fully sure about the builder. I'm not fully sure about the rent. I'm not fully sure about is it gonna work? Well, once it's done, those hesitations are gone, and there's an inherent value increase in that process. And on top of that, another big portion of that increase is, like I said, you know, that it took into account Edmonton's last 3 years of growth and added that to the increase in the first year. And as you see, the following years is 5%. And so you can, after this project's built, refinance, take your capital out, do it again. 5, 6 years from now, do it again. When you look at that cash flow thing that I showed you guys earlier, and I said, hey, look, it's actually a lot stronger than it shows, because you have $20,000 for repairs and maintenance. You have the inflated management salaries, you have all these other numbers. Well, if you're putting all that, you can do two things. You know, you could put all that money down against your mortgage and lower that mortgage amount, or you can build that up for 2-3 years and do another one. The other thing to think about is, if this thing is growing at this clip, you know, you could always borrow against it to fix things that are needed in these properties, but they're brand new. So, you know, you're talking 10, 15 years before you're going to need to replace roofs, 15, 20 years before you're going to need to replace windows. And so I'm not saying don't think about it. I'm just saying there's ways to be creative. There's other things that we can discuss once we, you know, understand this whole process better, to be able to help you, you know, reinvest that money or protect yourselves from even paying tax So there's more stuff we'll get into as we move forward. Any questions about this performa, guys? Any questions about MLI Select? Any questions about Whyte Edmonton? Nothing at all. It all makes sense. Everybody's fully getting it.
I have a comment, if I may. So as you know, Pete, and I have some clients here on the line, I built my whole book of business working with investors, and I am so excited over this product because literally for the same money that someone would buy a duplex locally, they can now own an apartment building. And when we were building out people's portfolios, the goal was always we started with what we could. I mean, I started back in the day with rent to owns, single family home rent to owns, and then we went into duplexes because those didn't cash flow anymore. The rent to owns, they didn't work, right? So then we went into buying single family homes and converting them, or buying duplexes. Then some people were able to graduate to get into like a little triplex or maybe a,
But
the goal was always to be able to buy multi-unit, but it's just most people just couldn't get there because it's commercial financing. And as Lee, so Lee is the builder, that's who he's referring to. As Lee was mentioning, to do this in Toronto at a commercial finance, you're looking at 50 to 60%. How do you ever save that money? And so with the last 2-3 years, with a lot of clients that I have, they chose to stay on variable rates. They're cash flow negative, and to be able to redeploy that capital into something like this, I really think it's a game changer. I haven't seen anything to be excited about in years. So I'm thrilled about this.
I agree, and I haven't seen anything to be this excited about in real estate in pretty much my entire career. I was extremely bullish on Hamilton when I first started in the business, and for good reason. And those who listened really did capitalize and did very, very well. This to me is the same opportunity, but extrapolated and 10x, because you're able to see the increase a lot quicker. You're able to gain that appreciation almost immediately. I had to wait 10 years to see the appreciation I got, which on one of these for $280,000, you're going to see that appreciation. You're literally within a year, you're looking at $500,000 increase in appreciation, and your money back out of the project. So it's really, really, and cash flowing positive. Most people that get into commercial, multifamily, understand that it's not the cash flow that matters, right? And even if they lose a little bit of money, it's not the end of the world. And they're putting 25, 30% down on these projects. They understand that, okay, I lost $20,000, but no, I actually gained $150,000 in appreciation, or I gained $250,000 in appreciation. And so it really is powered by numbers. And so, everybody knows that this is the goal. If you're buying real estate, these are the goals. Buy as many doors as you can. And I already mentioned the gentleman who did this over and over and is, basically sitting on a yacht somewhere, bringing in 1.5 million of cash flow a year now. But this is the goal, right? How do we gain as many doors as possible? And this window is kind of open now. Whenever the government is offering an opportunity like this, you really do need to act fast and jump. And those who wait kind of lose out. So when I was a certified energy advisor for 4 or 5 years before I became a real estate agent, and they were basically giving you $30,000-$40,000 to retrofit your home. Insulation, windows, furnace, AC, doors. And those who took advantage of the opportunity got that money from the government, and they changed their energy bills in their house, and they got actually a very aesthetically, new doors, new windows. Those who didn't, they lost the opportunity. The program closed, and then it was gone. And so, this is a very similar situation. People are like, well, it sounds too good to be true. Well, it's not. It sounds like it is, but it's not. This is the government throwing money at a problem and it's up to those who capitalize to win. And so it really is a game changer opportunity that I'm jumping on, and as many friends and family and clients that we can help along the way. I'm happy to pass this along because it really is like the best thing I've seen in 15 years. And again, I think that you do have to be careful. There's a lot of noise out there. There's a lot of people that are throwing spots up in places that don't make sense. There's a lot of people that are maybe putting product out there in an area that's not as advantageous. So I think location is very, very key. And that's why, again, I came out here and took a look exactly where these sites are. And I can promise you when I encourage you to come out and take a look at it. But when you are out here, you'll see there's a difference, right? And we're exactly, same as if you're familiar with Hamilton. There's good pockets of Hamilton, and there's pockets that it's maybe not the best. And so it's very, very similar here. You want to make sure you're investing in a place where it really makes sense. And I think there's a lot of confidence when you realize you're right beside the university, you're right beside the hospital, and you're right beside Whyte District, which is a very busy, happening, lively place.
Peter,
Yes.
I have a question.
Yeah.
You have a few people. You have about 20 people listening to this and so forth. How many buildings are we talking about?
So there is a limited amount of properties that we have in this area. You're not talking a new subdivision. You're not talking 100,000 doors can be built. You're talking about an area that's it's essentially a city core where it's infill projects, it's neighborhood beside university, beside the hospital. There's only a limited amount. I think we have 350, 360 doors available. That's a combination of 23, 35 units, and they're limited, and so there's not an endless supply here.
Okay, so what I'm trying to refer to is that are you trying to put people together as a group, or are individuals buying whole buildings?
So my goal today is just to educate you guys on what MLI Select is, what the program is, answer any questions on what that's about. Because I don't think everybody understands it and everybody is familiar with it. But also why Edmonton, and why specifically Briarstone, and why specifically am I dealing with this builder, this developer? And then it's up to you. At the end of the day, you have a friend, a brother who wants to join up. Great. I'm not in the business of combining you guys to see who wants to do it together. Is that an option? Maybe you call me and say, hey, Pete or Enza, hey, I have X, I'm willing to do 50% of it. Is there somebody that we can do it together with? Then we can obviously have JVs, lawyers draw up everything to make that work. I don't know if that is, your ideal. We're not talking a massive amount of money to get in. So, it's up to you. So my goal here is just to educate, explain, inform, and then help in any way I can on the process. So if you're looking to join with somebody and you're not quite sure you want to do it on your own, something we can talk about. Happy to do that. But no, I'm not trying to pool everybody to $5,000 together each and try to make that happen. No, it's not. We've sold a few of them already. And we have some spoken for that we're going through the process as we speak. There is a limited amount of these available. So I do suggest if you are interested, I put that quote in the beginning to say, guys, at the end of the day, these opportunities come up. Those who are willing to take the risk and to jump in and dive in are rewarded, right? And that's always been the case. We can stumble and overthink things forever, and then opportunities disappear. And so, not trying to say in any way salesy. I'm just telling you from my heart of hearts, knowing being in business myself for a lot of years, very entrepreneurial. Being an energy advisor and starting a business over that whole program. And the conservative government at the time promised me that they were renewing the program. And I invested a ton of money and effort and energy in it, and all of a sudden, bam, the program ended. And so these opportunities don't last forever, right? They threw money at this issue. They want to address the housing. There's a window here, and you want to act while it's available. So that's kind of the intensity, just to explain, highlight why I'm passionate about this specific location, why I'm passionate about the project, why I think you guys should really do some more due diligence on it, and then be a resource for you to answer any questions that you may have.
Sorry, Peter. Just about this, the parking spots. So each unit had 3 parking spots, or with a bike's parking spot, or what? What's that?
No, there's 3 parking spots for the whole building, and you pay for them, and there's bike spots that you pay for. So this is additional income that comes in. Again, this is where you are, right? You're literally like a downtown area where, it's not downtown Edmonton, but it's a downtown type area where everything's in walking distance. LRT, subways, like I said, a kilometer to the school, kilometer to the hospital. You're in prime location where it's very high walk score, so you don't need. Just think about it this way: so I build houses. When I do a duplex in Hamilton, they'll tell me if I need 1 or 2 spots, or I don't need 1 or 2 spots. So the city plans. You can't just say, I'm only doing 1 spot. The city's going to say, no, you need 10 spots, right? And they understand the demographic and what is needed in what area. There's city planners, civil engineers that do these things, that they determine what's needed and what's not needed.
Pete, there's a question in the chat from Khalid, and he asked if the price can be negotiated.
I would say we could have a conversation. I don't think that at the end of the day, you don't really go to Mattamy Homes and say, hey, can I get a cheaper price? It kind of is what it is. But at the same time, I am working with Lee. We have 5.739 in this pro forma, and we're working on trying to get a little bit of a discount on that. We might be in the 5.6 range by the time we're done here. But I'm happy to talk further if you're serious about it and see what we can do.
Okay, amazing.
Any other questions, guys? About Red, you have a question? Go ahead.
Go ahead. Yeah, I have a few questions, not just one, but first on that parking spot that gentleman mentioned. So you're saying it's just 3 for the whole building. So if for example, we have 23 rooms, and more than a few of them have cars, then we cannot accommodate them.
Well, no, there's street parking. There's your picture yourself being like downtown Toronto, for example. Not every house has parking. Not every
but
place.
Usually, I understand that, but usually like a building, the city would require a building to have ample parking for their tenants, right?
That's a great point, and that's why. So everything that's why I already mentioned. So if it was required for this demographic, they would enforce it. For example, I have a place on 24 Avalon Place in Hamilton, and I wanted to make it a duplex, but I can only put 1 parking spot in. And when I went for the application, it said, hey, sorry, you cannot get a duplex because we need 1 per spot. When you build a building, even in Hamilton, you do not need a parking spot for every single, depending on where it is. If you're in the rurals, then yes. Suburb type area, yes. But when you're in the downtown core, they understand that, like, for example, in Toronto, it's 0.48 people that actually have a car. Right? And so they know, okay, based on this many people, and they do that math, right? And so I don't think you need to overthink it and reinvent the wheel. the government or the city tells you, hey, this is what you need required to build here, 23 units. You need 3 parking spots, and this is the bike spots you need. So you satisfy that requirement, and you're good. And so if somebody does need a parking spot, there's street parking, there's other options, and you have to pay for those spots as well. So I promise you, I'm down here and there's lots of buildings that don't have parking. So, or very, very limited.
So Red, we had a really amazing call with the developer last week, and he actually spoke a lot about this, and it's just a cultural thing there. And these buildings are built for a certain demographic of which they bike everywhere. Like biking is huge there apparently. So
like a lot of these people are like I said, you're right beside the hospital, you're right beside the university. They're taking LRT, they're taking bus, they're taking a bike. They're just it's not a 2-bedroom family type environment that we're talking about, that 2-3 bedroom units that they're going to need vehicles. So again, I think you can overthink it, but I think at the end of the day you go based on, okay, the city's approving this building based on the numbers and statistics for the area and the demographic, and so there's no need to overthink what they've already offered. You just kind of accept it and move on and move forward.
Okay. What about? So maybe I'll mention all my questions in one go, and then we can just.
Yeah. No problem.
My questions are. So what's the average square footage of a bedroom? Because as you know, condos now, what they build it like dog crates, right? They're so small. So I wonder what the average square footage of these buildings are per room, and then are there mostly 1 bedroom, or are there 2 bedrooms or combo? What's the percentage? And finally, what if interest rates increase instead of decrease, as you mentioned, right? So what will happen to
Okay, perfect.
profit?
So I'll start with your last question, the interest rate. So as I mentioned, the interest rate is locked in at the best. It's the best of both worlds. And that's why it's so awesome. It's literally locked in at it's locked in at the lowest rate available. Either when you get your certificate of insurance, if it's 3.75%, it's locked in at that rate. If by the time construction is complete, that rate goes down to 3.25, they're going to give you that better rate. And so it's literally a no risk reward situation. And so that's really, really a big reason why I'm further excited about this, because you don't have to stress about, oh, what if it does go up? Well, you're safe. And also, if you
locked in for how long?
Pardon? So you can lock it in for even 20 years if you'd like. But there's 5 and 10 year options, and even a 20-year option that you can lock rates in for. But don't forget too, if you're waiting 10 years, how much is that building worth in 10 years? Let's say all of a sudden, and we go back to the strength in numbers. The rents typically go up or down? Up, right?
Yeah.
And so they don't go down. So if in 10 years you add $100, and the other beauty of Edmonton, there's no rent control, right? So if you want to raise it $100, go for it. If you can get it, great. Anyway, that's a huge benefit of Edmonton.
wow.
Not only can you kick tenants out if they're not paying you, but you can also raise the rent if it deems necessary, or whatever the case is. But you talk strength in numbers. 10 years from now, okay, the rate went up. Well, the rent increase should be able to cover that. If not, you've gained so much appreciation in 10 years. If you were really in a bad situation and you're like, oh, I can't cover this, you built a lot of equity in this property in 10 years, right? And so you can take a cushion of 100, 200,000 and put it in a cushion. On top of that, we went over the numbers in the pro forma, and you're talking, almost $30,000 in repair, maintenance, reserve, almost $40,000 actually when you look at it, that they budgeted for. If you're scared if the rate increases in 5 years or 10 years and the rate's done, put that aside. In 10 years, 40,000 is 400,000, right? And so there's lots of ways to mitigate risk in this situation. And again, there's power numbers. So $100 increase for 23 units, for example, is $2,300 a month. That's $26,000-ish a year. So if the rate goes up in 10 years, an extra 1%, well, if it raised to $100 extra in rent in 10 years, which is likely over a 10-year period, well then, that extra 26,000 is going to offset any increase in interest that's there, right? So the more you think about it, Red, you own property, duplexes, single, and right now they're a lot of people aren't in the best situation on rentals, right? And on a single family or duplex. The beauty of this, why you guys really need to jump on this opportunity, is it's a 50-year amortization, which really mitigates the risk. It lowers that payment significantly to deal with these influxes, deal with these situations, and so it really is a prime situation. Your other question was, sorry, what was your other question, Red?
Yeah, the average square footage of a
Yeah,
bedroom.
so again, I wouldn't overthink it. The 23 are all one beds, and again, you can use your chat GPT and see what's the most demanded unit in Edmonton or in Strathcona area, and you're going to see it's a one bedroom unit. And so at the end of the day, you're going to, most buildings, if you see the mix, they're mostly one beds, and then there's some two beds and some three beds. And so we're really targeting the most demanded demographic as far as rent amount and design and demand. And so I think you're in a really good situation that way. But I've been in the units, and I'll share at some point some of the videos. They're comfortable. They're comfortable one bedroom units, and all of them have laundry within the unit. And they all have balconies, and it's a very it's a comfy. I think it's 480-ish square feet, somewhere around that range. So they're comfortable. Any other questions? I saw somebody else that had a question. I think it was
Akil, I think might have had a question. Akil, do you have a question?
Yes, I do. Hi, Peter and Enza.
Hey,
hi.
Akil.
Just wanted to know what's the average cap rate of Edmonton or Calgary? Sorry.
What's the average cap rate?
Yep, for multifamily.
Well, I can quickly chat GPT this.
Yeah. Okay, so
ChatGPT is our friend.
okay, cool. So who would be
Uh,
paying the costs for the cost to fill the units?
So if you look at the performa, they have property management built in,
Mm-hmm.
and so it's hands off for you. Now you want to, like, I think Barbara's in here, and Barbara was mentioning she may just manage it herself. She manages property herself. Now I have stuff in Florida. We manage it ourselves. Is there a little bit extra hurdle? Sure, but can you do it? Absolutely, right? And so that's kind of up to you. But there's third party, like it's not in house. There's third party property managers here. We give you a list, and you can choose whatever you like, right? Like I mentioned, most of them are 5.5% is what they're charging. And
Right.
and what we're seeing is, I was in a building today with 96 units, the first one. I was in a building today, the first one was 98 units, and they were 90 plus percent by they were 98% occupied by completion, and they have 2 units left in the building. That's 98 units, and they're still doing some touch-ups in the building. So you're, like I said, I think that you need to realize you're in an area that needs more units, right? CMHC is aware, and they're daily looking at the rentability of these products, and they're not gonna put, they're not gonna give you 95% financing in an area where they don't think it's gonna rent out, right? And we use 3.1% vacancy, but you're in an area that's actually 1.4 to 2.1%. And so you can go to, other areas that still work, but the vacancy rate's 8.4% or 12%, right? And that's up to you to decide, what you like. But for me, what we really look at is location, and we want to be in the highest, best demand areas available. And this Strathcona area and the other areas we have are close to universities, LRT, hospitals, and nightlife. And so that's where you want to be. So
Okay. So, well, my question was, if it's evaluated at a cap of 5%, would it be delivered possessed by tenants, or would it be delivered vacant?
no. Like we're going to help,
Okay.
with that process, right? And so when it's 3 months out from completion, that's when you start marketing that property to make sure that as soon as you're done, you have some tenants moving in.
Okay. And who has to pay for the cost to fill the tenants? For
Well,
manage.
that's part of the performer, right? So they get paid a percentage based on
Okay.
filling it. So they're incentivized to fill the building for you, or they don't get paid.
Mm-hmm. Now I'm
They don't-
asking, who has to pay for the cost to fill them?
The tenants are paying them, but you essentially, you
Right.
and the tenant are paying them, right? And so
Correct.
if they like, these property managers work on commission, basically. If they can't rent, if they can't rent your place out, they don't get paid, right? And so they're the ones that are going to be, putting that effort forward to make sure they get your place rented.
Okay. Cool.
And I've even, there's little things we can do to help with that process as well. But yeah, you got property managers that are, they have a vested interest to make sure it rents for you, and to manage the building for you, to make sure that you're happy with them. If you're not happy with them, you're going to find a different property management company.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So
The
now again,
builder developer said that he works with quite a few very good ones. So it's not like we're limited in options if people aren't delivering for you. And also he was typically saying that right, Pete, last week he was saying most of the buildings, he delivers them like 90% occupied before they even close.
yeah, especially like I said, this area, it's where you want to be. It's a good spot. So you really, there's no issue.
And Akil, I looked it up. ChatGPT said that Edmonton proper, so downtown, cap rate average is 4 to 6%. So
46?
426.
Okay.
Oh yeah, 46.
So
Brad, you have a question?
yeah, one question there, my friend.
I'm on. Oh, go ahead.
Wait, Rand,
Utilities assumed as included in the rent projection.
Pardon?
They wrote this question, Fayaz from Edmonton there.
Okay.
Are utilities assumed as included in the rent projection?
Well, if you look at the pro forma, there's a tab for utilities. 19, I think it's, let me just see it.
so if I remember too, Pete, from the call we had with the developer,
So
he was
29,000 is built into this for utilities. Now, Lee, they're going to have, if we do the boiler system, their own meter. So it's probably going to be less. Yeah. So this is, it's going to be a lot less because you're going to have common elements and whatnot. But again, this is why we try to, under promise, over deliver. We have 29,000 built into here, but we're going to have separate meters for all the units. And so it's actually going to be way, way less, which again builds to your cash flow. So, it really is, where did it go? It really is a good under promise, over deliver situation. I'm sorry, I don't know where I just put this. Where'd you guys go here? There you are. All right. Any other questions, guys? Okay, so I'll continue on a little bit here. No other questions right now? Okay. So I'm not gonna, bore you guys with numbers, but there's 35 unit, 46, which is 223s. Basically, just to move forward, first, we're gonna get you guys approved. And so you're gonna have to send in a form with your net worth statement and how you get approved. You have to have 25% net worth of the price of the building. So to make it simple, it's worth 10 million. You need a $2.5 million net worth, and you need 10% liquidity. Liquidity is equal to something that is convertible to cash within 90 days. So RSPs, TFSAs, line of credit, cash, a combination thereof. And we can help you guys with this process as well. But that's what you need to get approved. Then once we say, hey, yes, you're approved, let's move forward. You submit a 2.5% refundable deposit to secure the land and cover soft costs during pre-construction. Then you have 10 days. You need to have an Alberta lawyer by law vet this, and really you want to make sure that they've dealt with CMHC contracts. So we have a list of lawyers that you can use. They go through that process. They say, hey, yep, everything looks good. You firm up. Then you owe another 2.5%. No, not yet, right? Not yet. Never mind. Then you have the pre-qualification. Oh, sorry. Then you have the pre-construction. Builder secures demolition permit, submission of architectural engineer, mechanical. Takes about 60 to 90 days. Speaking with Lee, this guy has everything buttoned up, already spent a lot of money on engineering and mechanical, so that when we say go, he's delivering the full file to the government or to the municipality. And we're looking at probably 6 to 8 weeks. But on a conservative side, we like I said, we always want to under promise, over deliver, 60 to 90 days. Then we do the purchase agreement, land purchase and construction agreement are sent to the buyer. No, this is off. Sorry. This is off a little bit. I'm going to I'll send you guys the actual full one, but this is off. But once construction begins, then you owe the other 2.5%. The 2.5 is held in trust. And so let's say, the certificate of insurance doesn't get delivered. They say, hey, this doesn't work. For some reason, something changes. That first initial 2.5% is refundable, and you will get your money back. And then from day you guys sign up to completion, we're figuring 12 to 14 months. So full project delivery, 12 to 14 months. All right. Brick by brick, a portfolio becomes more than property. It becomes a legacy. Real estate is not just about owning doors, it's about opening them for the next generation and building wealth that lasts beyond a lifetime. The major fortunes in America have been made in land. That's Rockefeller. And so, yeah, I appreciate you guys joining in. Happy to answer any questions that you guys may have right now. If there's any last minute questions, please throw them at me. I'm happy to answer. If you guys want to, get a hold of me or Enza or Brandy or anybody on the team, happy to answer more questions. Once we're at if we do engage and we do move forward, once we're at, the signing process and there's last minute questions and you want to meet Lee, we can even arrange that. But really, myself, Enza, Brandy, the team, Amon, we are here to answer any questions you guys may have. And we know pretty much everything about the project that you may have a question about. But if we don't, we have access to the right people to answer for you.
I'd like to make another little comment. So I just want to thank you. That was so informative. I've been learning so much about all of this. And yesterday I actually met with a private equity firm, and all they do is deal in the apartment building space. And I could not believe that in the last 40 years in Canada, apartment buildings as an asset class has never experienced a dip. So you know how real estate might go up and down a little bit. Apartment buildings as an asset class has never, ever experienced a dip. And it's just because there is not enough affordable housing for the amount of people that we have. And in Canada as a whole, we only build 200,000 homes a year.
And we
It's-
bring in 500,000 people a year.
Yeah.
So
it's
yeah, no, it
insane.
really is. Great point, Enza, and it really is one of the most stable things you can kind of get into, because even when the market goes bad, right? People lose their homes. What happens? They have
They
to
have
rent.
They have to rent.
And so, at the end of the day, it really is. I remember driving when I was much younger, and driving by apartment building. Oh man, whoever owns that must be happy. and so, they really are. They've been known as a ticket to cash money, and we have a prime opportunity now, which wasn't feasible, before this program. I don't know everybody's situation, but most people don't have $2.5 million, which is 25, 30%, 40% down to put on these buildings, and then amortize it over 25 years. And so now all of a sudden you have to make sure you have at least $250,000 cushion to deal with any issues, right? And because they're not cash flow positive, because they're 25-year amortization, you don't even have the ability to build a cushion, build a nest egg there. And so it really was for the rich, right? It was for the very well-off people could afford these buildings, or they bought them at times when, they were very, 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 very cheap. And so, those people, obviously, people don't let these buildings go, right?
Mhm.
You look in Hamilton, you don't see, apartment buildings for sale.
Yeah.
Now if you do, it's REITs that pick them up. And that's one more thing I just wanted to mention before we go. Exit strategy. REITs cannot buy. They do not buy. It's in their mandate that they're not venture capitalists. They don't buy, based on performas. They don't buy based on, that they have to buy once it's complete. So 2 years, 3 years down the road, and really the REITs right now are so aggressive on these because these mortgages are transferable. And so they're getting, they're adding to their portfolio performance. Not only, they're used to picking these things up and being cash flow neutral or even negative. They're picking these things up being cash flow positive. So they're jumping on these things. Like I've been with Lee for the last few days, and he's talking to people, clients, and they say, hey, we have somebody who wants something that's turnkey ready already. Well, sure, so do I. So does everybody. And that's why I'm telling you, there's REITs and stuff ready to pick these up once they're done. So the 10% increase in price is very realistic, from the time you put your signature on the paper to the time it's complete. And that's a massive amount of money. Tell me another way you can make $500,000 with 5% down and then take your money back as well. It's almost impossible. So I hope this was informative for you guys. I hope that you guys learned quite a bit. Happy to do it again. Happy to explain it all. I'm very passionate about this opportunity. I think it can change lives. And so any questions you guys have, throw them at me, call me, let's talk direct, and we'll hopefully help you guys, and let's change your life.
Sounds great. Thank you so much, Pete. Thank you.
Awesome, guys. Thank you
To
so
everybody
much.
for joining.
Thank you. Take care, and thank you for joining.
Thanks, Peter.
Ciao, guys.
Thanks, Payal and other for joining.
How do I close it?
You can press the red button on the bottom and it'll close and it'll still save the meeting and it'll send you a recording after and everybody else.
We'll close.